Part 1 was all about light control and understanding the difference in terms of light quality with diffuse light versus specular light. We also ended up creating this final image. So if you haven't checked that out yet, go back to that video. Now we're gonna go a bit deeper. We're actually gonna use one of the images that we created from the last tutorial to compare against this one. And just to walk you through the scene, this is again Kiara. We'll link her up so you guys can give her a follow. And this go around, we have the ProFoto B10 up on the C-stand, but positioned in that same kind of butterfly light position, so that way we can compare it against the last video. You can use any flash you'd like. So look, if you guys are using 8200s or just regular flashes, MagMod has this adapter, which will allow you to place 2 of them and use the softbox system. Or you can use ProFoto rings, which we're gonna use in this instance. I already have one mounted, so choose the mag ring that fits whatever flash you're using. Next, we have the MagBox. This is the 24-inch Octa, and I'm gonna show you how to set it up. I'm done. That's kind of a big deal. If you've been around like doing this for a little bit, you know how big of a pain softboxes are, Kiara. And this zip-on baffle, I mean, come on. You ready for this? Like the name, MagMod, magnet, you know? Watch this. Done. Done. My 12-year-old would love it. So satisfying, so satisfying. Okay, so I'm gonna position this roughly in that same butterfly-like position. Kiara, come forward a little bit. Let's go ahead and raise this up just a little. Okay, so I've got this in position where it's in the same spot as our butterfly setup with just the mag sphere. Now let's go back to that. I want to show you that for just a moment. So we had the mag sphere placed directly over our subject and we got this image. Now what we said was the light was diffused, but it's still a hard light source, meaning because the light is small in relation to our subject, well, the shadow transitions are still harsh, right? A hard light source has a sharp highlight to shadow transition, whereas a soft light source, well, you're gonna see that in just a moment. This would be a softer light source because that light is larger now. The modifier increases the size, and now it's far larger than just that small sphere. But they're both diffused. All right, Kiara's gonna do roughly the same pose that we did last time for a comparison point, and there we go. Okay, but let's put this next to the mag sphere image. What you should start noticing is these shadow transitions are so much more gradual. I mean, the way that it falls off in the background is far more pleasing, right? Like the shape of her shadow is far more pleasing with this larger light source. On top of that, if we zoom in, if we look at skin, kind of the highlight to shadow transitions over skin, it's that much more gradual. So think of it this way, soft versus hard is just the size of the light source in relation to your subject. The larger the light source, the softer that shadow transition is gonna be. But specularity is all about shine or the reflective nature of the light. You're gonna get a specular light when it's going directly at your subject, and a lot of that light is gonna be bouncing back, creating that kind of reflective looking light. So could you have a large light source that is specular in nature? Absolutely. Like if I were to actually take off the baffle, that's exactly what that would be. It'd be a larger light source that is specular, which is gonna be more reflective. Now for my look and what I do, I don't think that that would actually fit, right? But it is used quite often in, say, fashion or beauty work. Okay, so with this understanding in terms of the larger light source, let me give you one key point. I want you guys to come over to this side. I want you to notice that if you wanna get kind of the desired look from a light source, there's a simple rule that you can go by. You can change this anytime you want, okay? But the simple rule is this. You want your light source to be roughly the size of the light source in terms of distance to your subject. So if we're talking about like a 24-inch, Octa, 2 to 3 feet is about the right distance. 24 inches, 2 feet. 2 to 3 feet is gonna give you a really nice soft light. But if I were to actually extend that distance, then it's no longer really gonna be as soft because the size in relation to the subject matters. This is why the sun as a light source is very hard, right? The sun is huge, but in relation to us, it's just a pinprick in the sky. So I'm gonna show you this right now. Let's go ahead and just move the light away and have Kiara step back a little bit. Okay, so we've maybe tripled the distance. I'm gonna go ahead and just raise my flash power. Now, when you look at that image, it starts going backwards more towards that kind of direct bare bulb flash shot, right? It's not completely there because this is still a much larger light source, but we start getting closer to that look where the shadow transition, the highlight to shadows is more sharp. So just remember, softness is determined by size of the light source in relation to where the subject is. Now let's do this. You guys understand now diffuse versus specular. You understand now hard versus soft light. Let's actually take this deeper into practice, and let's do a really cool technique that I call light layering or stacking, whatever you want to call it, it's totally fine. But through the power of editing, we're gonna magically set up our backdrop so we have something to shoot into. The backdrop is set up. Now let me show you what we kind of typically do. We typically get our main light set up, right? And we would just use this one main light to light the entire scene. The prop though is that that's gonna look a little bit flat and not that interesting. And I'm gonna tell you why in just a moment. So first, just so I can kind of demonstrate, let's go ahead and take just a standard shot so you can see that, well, at 1/200 f5.6 and ISO 100, all the light in the scene is blacked out, okay? So that way, whatever light that you see is only coming from this one flash. Okay, so we get an image like this, and this is okay. The problem is that it kind of lacks dimension. It lacks depth because we only have one light going on in the scene, right? This is our main light. It's lighting her, it's lighting the scene, everything. When you think about shooting outdoors, the reason why when you add one light when you're shooting outdoors in the sun and everything, you're not really adding just one light, right? If you think about that scene, well, you've got the sun that's kind of lighting the entire scene, but then you've got all the objects around you that are creating reflections and highlights and lights bouncing around and adding dimension. Then when you add a light, even if it's just one light, well, really you're working with a scene that already has 2, 3, 4 lights set up for you. So that's what layering is. So what we're gonna do is kind of the same exact thing. I'm actually gonna turn off this flash for just a moment, and we're gonna start by actually layering light. The first thing I wanna do is I wanna set up one light that just kind of adds light to the entire scene overall. So all I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna place another B10 up on a stand. So I'm gonna kind of angle this up and towards the back of the room. So it kind of gets the ceiling and the wall. And really, it's just gonna create a bit of ambient light for our shot. So this is gonna be our layer number 1. And you're probably going, well, Pi, that doesn't look that great. I completely agree with you. So now we're gonna go to layer 2. Now that we have a bit of ambient light in our shot, I'm gonna go ahead and power on the B10, which is again going through that 24-inch octa. It's set up in a Rembrandt pattern. So basically it's off like, I don't know, 45 degrees off camera angle and kind of going directly towards Kiara, right? This is what we typically think of doing in the studio, and I'm gonna show you why it's not necessarily my favorite option. So I'm gonna take that similar kind of portrait right here, and let's look at it. This is okay, but it just doesn't feel that dimensional. And the reason why is because this flash is firing and lighting up Kiara. We do get a tiny bit of shadow on the corner of that background, but it's also lighting the background and kind of flattening it out a bit. So one really fun technique that I like to do a lot in the studio, or even when I'm out and about, is I don't place my light actually at that 45-degree angle. I actually bring it behind my subject and angle it towards them. So what's gonna happen now is I do need to adjust the pose so she's kind of looking towards this angle, but I'm not gonna end up hitting the background, and I'm gonna get a light that kind of tends to wrap more. Now, by the way, I think this looks even better when you grab the larger softbox. So MagMod has this is the Pro 42. It looks absolutely fantastic in studios. A bit big if you're gonna take it on location quite a bit. But look, with that light position there now, I'm gonna have Kiara kind of angle similarly. And look at the difference in that image. It looks so much more natural, so much more interesting than that shot we previously had. But I wanna add a little bit more. So look, we're gonna layer a third light onto this. What I'm gonna do with this main is I'm actually gonna power it down. So right now, it's at 6 power, which I don't know, that's like 1/16, 1/32 power. It's not a lot of light. So I'm gonna take it down 2 more stops. Here's just the background light itself, that one light that we set up, firing up and kind of back of the ceiling, just to give it a little bit of ambient light, right? Here's the second light now that's coming from the backside. That's kind of our main light lighting up our subject. Now we're gonna set up a light to highlight our subject's face. So I'm gonna use a third flash here. This is just an A10. I've got the mag grip on it. And what we're gonna do is our kind of favorite combo, the grid plus the sphere. So that grid is gonna funnel light forward and the sphere is gonna diffuse it a bit, right? Which we learned in the last tutorial. Only we're not gonna place this where you might think. We're actually gonna place it directly in front of this guy. When you place a light like this directly against, like very close to the softbox, you're not gonna get a shadow because it's gonna kind of wrap around that light. And I'm gonna turn this on and we're gonna use a very low power setting. Now it's just gonna add a little kiss of light under Kiara's face, and watch this. Oh my gosh, I love this. Now look at how much depth and dimension this has to it, right? What we did was we kind of did exactly what the sun is doing outside. We used each level of lighting to kind of layer the scene. We started with just light overall in the scene, then we added a light to highlight our subject, then we added another light just to add a little bit of depth and highlight exactly where we want the viewer to look in the photograph. Now that I have this set up though, I don't need to really move stuff around here. I'm actually gonna just adjust Kiara and we're gonna keep shooting. Now take a look at where we started with just that first image and one light. Now look at the final image with our layered 3-light setup. You're taking the principles of soft and hard light now and you're blending it with your understanding of kind of how light works in the real world. And by doing this, you can create these incredible images that just have painterly depth to them. Well, I'm done with this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. We're gonna link up everything that we used in the description of the video, including all the modifiers, all of it. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments. I read each of your comments. I get tons of ideas for them. So if there's something you guys want to learn about, let me know. I'm going to get back to shooting because I want some more photos. Peace.